All right, everybody, we're back. So go ahead and jump in the comments just so we can see that you're all here. I think a bunch of people have already been jumping in. So we've got the newest author with Argento, and we've been talking to him for a long time, kind of hammering down some of the details of what he's going to write. And so we've got Ty. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Ty.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ty Burson. Nice to meet you.
There you go. And it's Tyrone, right?
It is Tyrone. My mom hated me.
I think it's a cool name. No,
it's an Irish name. I have to tell people that all the time. It's Irish. Trust me.
You probably hate being called it, but every time I see Ty, I want to say Tyrone.
Yeah, it's Tyrone. But I've been Ty ever since I was, tiny. So
yeah, ever since you left the gang, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. No, man. So it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us. I know you're on the East Coast, so we're interrupting your dark beer time. So we'll.
I was lamenting earlier with Shayne that I would be on the couch with a dark beer. My wife would be playing some show, and I would fall asleep to it. And it's a beautiful evening.
There you go. Perfect. That sounds great to me. As I say, I've got to stay a little bit sharp on the toes here because I've got to talk about mythology later. So that's going to be fun. But
nice.
But yeah, so if you want to kind of jump in and kind of give us a quick spiel on your book.
Okay, I'm sorry I wrote it. I know it's an elevator pitch, but I wrote it because it's 8:00 on a Friday, and I'm still used to teacher time, which means I'm up at 5 in the morning. So I wrote it so I wouldn't mess it up. So I said the story is about a recent high school graduate who occasionally takes things that aren't hers. She can do this without getting caught because of a magical jewelry box. That gets her noticed by the wrong people and opens her to a world of wizards, werewolves, and elves. See, I would have totally messed that part up. Jennifer, or Jen Knight, lives with her mom, Victoria, and has had to fend for herself because her mother drinks too much. There's a reason for it. There's a hole in her memory, and whenever Jen asks where they came from or who her father is, Victoria completely shuts down. The story takes place in Bakersfield, California in the summer of 1985. It's peppered with cultural and popular references and anecdotes that should bring back memories of the times, as well as to draw those who weren't there into the bizarre world of the 1980s. Mm-hmm. The first arc of the story, books 1 through 3, Jen is introduced to the magical world that she never knew existed. She's pitted against this world's wizards, and then she goes on a search for who she is and her own magical roots. Yeah. So slightly longer than a good elevator pitch.
Oh, no, that's great. I don't think anyone here is looking for an elevator pitch. They basically want you to read the book to them on the call. So no, it's really cool. And Lane, if you can pull up the dates, I know you got the covers in the background there, but just while we're talking, maybe you can flip the covers up so everyone can see them. But I love the title themes that you came up with. I love those.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so maybe if you want to jump into that and just say how'd you pick?
I was working on a project that didn't flush out, and I really had this character that I liked, and I was placing it in the 80s, and that's what really drove the whole thing. The fact that I survived the 80s is a wonderful thing. I don't remember too much about it. All of my really, really bad choices took place then. But it's a lot of fun to write about because it really is strange looking back on it now. So and then I was thinking about the music and that sort of thing. And I thought, really so much of the music would apply to the books themselves. So everyone is connected in some way. It makes sense. But you probably have to read the book in order to make the connection between the 80s song and the book.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I know when I was trying to throw you ideas for your blurb, just kind of goofing around, and I kept saying, trying to single-handedly save blockbusters, or, like I was throwing in all these 80s references, and you're like, no.
Well, no, actually, the thing is that I'm trying, because the first couple books are in 1985, and I do want to write several more. I'm really enjoying this, so I'm gonna have to age her up, and I'm going to have to progress through the 80s. But it's real easy to blur all the 80s things that happened at once, So, oh wait, oh no, that didn't happen yet. That was a couple of years. So I have to remember that stuff and go back.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I didn't think about that, because some of the things would be like late 80s versus early 80s or something like that. So Lane, I don't know if you've got Lane's in the background here doing all the important stuff. When's the first launch date, Lane? Is that, I didn't have it on my notes here. Oh wait, there it is. Book 1, Pour Some Magic on Me, is September 9th. So that's the cover that Lane's showing right now. And then book 2 if Lane will switch the title there, we've got You Give Magic a Bad Name, and that's September 16th. And Lane's putting them on the screen too. And we'll post all this in the Den of Freaks too. And then book 3 is Sweet Child of Magic instead of Sweet Child of Mine. And that's September 23rd. So we've already got some ARC team people. And I believe, are they on the second book or the third?
They just finished the second one. I sent that back to Lane. So the third, I believe, will go out this week. And they've been wonderful. I can't thank them enough. And great insights, great feedback. And my turnaround for them, I give them about a week or so. And then I can make the edits pretty quickly. There we go. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. So why don't we go back into a little bit of your background? So, you obviously started writing, but what do you do in the professional world right now?
So I am a middle school English teacher, and I have been doing that this is my 18th year.
Wow.
Prior to that, I started out many years ago. I was in the Air Force during the Cold War, Russian linguist. Wasn't a very good Russian linguist, but that's what I did. I was in Berlin when the wall came down. I've been in Japan, where I was in charge of copying the Mir space station.
Yeah.
So I had some pretty good experiences for about a decade, and then I got out, and I was married by that time, and I had 2 children at that time, a boy and a girl. One was born in Germany, one was born in Japan. And then we went to Kansas, and I became a manager of a cable company.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to write my first American novel at that time, so I took some time to do that, and it wasn't very good.
And when was that? Was that in the 80s or not? No.
I got out. Actually, no, I got out in 95.
Okay.
So 95.
Okay, so you would have been going through the traditional world. The traditional publishing world,
Yeah, I sent out hundreds of queries and got hundreds of rejections, and then I kind of set the writing aside for a while. Let's see, I was a manager for there, and then I went to work at Rena Center as a manager for a while, kind of a regional kind of thing.
Yeah,
and then decided that I hated that. That's a horrible job. Nobody wants that job. I was the manager. I was going to people's houses and knocking. People were putting guns on me and stuff. It was terrible.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got guns pulled on me. Keep the TV. It's fine.
Yeah. Wow.
But I didn't like that, so I went back to school and I got a master's in education and a teaching certificate in English.
Okay.
And my wife went back to school at the same time and got a bachelor's in microbiology. And by that time we had 4 kids.
Yeah.
And we were going to school. And I became a teacher, and we moved to St. Louis because my wife was in a PhD program there.
Yeah.
At WashU. And I started teaching then, and I went ahead and got a doctorate in education while I was there. The cool thing about that is that I got used to writing all the time. When you write a dissertation, you write. That's what you do. So every morning I got up and I wrote for a couple hours. Every weekend I was writing 15, 20 hours a weekend. But what it did was it established this really nice routine for me. And I hated writing. Dissertation's terrible. I don't recommend it unless it's just.
I'm in the same boat. I can't do academic writing at all.
The Dr. Burson thing is not worth it at all. So anyway, I had an idea for a book back then about a boy with a stutter that talked to dragons. It was a juvenile fiction thing.
Yeah.
And I entered several contests. I actually made it a little ways along Amazon's Breakthrough Novelist Award.
Yeah.
But I had a small publisher that I won their contest. They wanted to publish me. So I pulled myself out of that contest. They published me for a couple of books. They were small. They didn't have a lot of resources. Yeah. I learned a lot. I wrote 3 books in that, juvenile fiction. I really enjoyed it. And that's where the writing kind of just kept going. And then I've been working on this project for the last couple of years, and some side things. So there might be some more things coming down the road. But yeah.
So I know we've talked about quite a few of the ideas that you've had, and some of them are really intriguing, like the Kansas thing. And if you want to get into that, but But you've got some cool kind of like history that you've looked into that inspired some cool story potential ideas.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I like about the whole urban fantasy genre is that the interplay between the fantastical and with the everyday mundane.
Yeah.
And for me, like when I was watching, say, Harry Potter or something, my favorite parts were always the beginning and at the end, where here's the normal world, and all of the magic is in that world, and you don't expect it. And I think that's that's the most fun.
Yeah, that's cool. So, did you always want to write?
I would say I started writing back when I was still in the military active duty the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been back in the late 80s or so. So I did dabble. I forgot to mention at some point in there, I joined the National Guard, and I've been an ammo troop. I ended up retiring. So I was an ammo troop. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been to Kuwait. I've been to places like that.
Well,
so
thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah, you bet. 2011 is when 2011 is when I retired from the Guard with 20 years. And that's consequently the same time I got my doctorate, 2011. So it was kind of an interesting year.
So you've had a really slow, just kind of non-eventful life from what
I am a Forrest Gump. I'm a man of limited capacities that's been in extraordinary circumstances.
No, that's crazy, man. So let me see here. I've got a couple questions written down here. So what is your favorite part of writing? And I know, let me back up. I know I just asked you if you always wanted to write. I never did. I never thought about it. I just loved reading. I loved kind of escaping. And it sounds like from your answer that was your escape while you were doing all your other stuff, right? Like while you were overseas. Is that what you're implying? Or
I mean, everybody in my family are big readers. We read all the time. Read everything. The writing, I think going back even to high school, I won some awards in high school. When I was a young kid, I entered a poetry contest and I won. It was a national contest. I came in first for my age or something like that. So it's always kind of been a bug there. Relating it to what's my favorite thing, I like just creating stories in my head. I go on long walks, and that's where I get my most writing done. I write in my head, and then I come back and just pound it out. But I carry on whole scenes in my head, conversations, and your brain is much more active and engaged when you're out moving around. For me, it's a really good fit. So I love being able to go out and do that. So I'm always imagining. I'm a fair artist, so I would draw comics back when I would read comics and draw my own storylines and draw my characters. And I do whiteboards for the kids at school, kind of elaborate things like that. And so, that's I think it's all related.
Yeah, that's crazy because I did something. I think it was actually just for a school assignment, but I did some kind of 2 or 3 page short story in like 4th grade. And I ended up winning and going to like the Reader's Digest or something, whatever there's some kind of national award. And I got in there, but I never put 2 and 2 together that I was actually good at it. I was just like, oh, cool, I won this thing, but I loved reading. And so I never thought I'd be a writer. But then once I started writing, I got into the fact that my favorite part of it was writing like just crazy, interesting characters, just kind of where they don't fit a mold. It's more like Frankensteining characters together. And that was always interesting to me, is when you make them good but bad or happy but sad. And you just kind of show the polar extremes of the people. And so my favorite thing was always building the characters. And I know some people love building the scene, or some people love writing the words and just making just pretty prose. But mine was always characters. And so I always like to ask authors that, what their focus is. And it's always interesting to hear the answer.
And I agree with you. I think the best ones, honestly, and I'm not, I'm not there, but the best ones truly are character driven. And I've been fortunate because I'm an English teacher. I go to national conferences, and I've met some outstanding, traditional authors and the things that they, they are so character driven. They're insights that they want to talk about, the way people develop and things like that. It's pretty amazing what some of them do. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, every time I think I'm doing pretty good, then I read something and I'm like, I got a lot to learn. And
But
that's great.
again, too, though, those people typically will spend years.
Yeah.
And with enough time and enough eyes on something, you can produce something pretty magical, I think. But we're under a little bit more time constraints, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a different world, and we don't have 50 editors looking upon
Right.
it and then reviewing it 20 times and net galleys and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, that's interesting, and I have noticed that I didn't know this for the longest time, but when you mentioned walking, I've noticed that recently, that if I go for a walk or go do something physical, even if it's just driving, if I'm having to focus intently on something, where I'm putting my feet or doing the steering wheel or whatever, all of a sudden my mind just explodes. And it's like I took the pressure off of trying to think of something, and all of a sudden it all just starts coming to me. And
Yeah,
so I've noticed that too, that I never thought that was the case. I'd always have to kind of lock myself in a room and write in the beginning. But now it's like if I go for a walk, all of a sudden I've got a whole novel in my head, five scenes or something.
Yeah, I think your productivity is much better when you get out and move around.
Yeah, that's crazy. So is that the best place? Is that kind of your process where you go for a walk in the morning?
Well, COVID, as awful as it was for everybody, and it really was, it's awful for everybody on every level. It was awful for me to teach. It's awful for the poor people that had affected personally. But my commute is about an hour each way.
Okay.
So I got those 2 hours back, and I was able to walk for the last year or so in the mornings and stuff. My normal routine is when school's in session and it's regular, I get up at 5. I'm out the door at 5:15. I get to school at 6. I write for an hour. I start my day. That's the only writing I get. So I don't have the opportunity to go out and really do those things. The weekends are great. And everybody knows here, I get up way early than anybody else. And I'll sit, drink my coffee, veg on Facebook for, 15 or 20 minutes. And then I get started and I write for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll get up and take a little walk, and then I come back and write a bit more if I'm really trying to accomplish quite a bit. But that's a good routine for me. Yeah. But in a perfect world, when I retire.
There you go. Buy the book. Everybody buy the book.
I would, walking would be a big deal. I'd get up and I'd write, and then just come down and then it's just flushing it out.
Yeah. So when you're, one thing that people always tell me, and I always ask other authors if they do this too, but are you spacey in like big social atmospheres when you're around a lot of people? Are you kind of off in your own world a lot of the time? And
I think authors, it's a very lonely pursuit. Yeah. I think it's hard with what I do. I'm sort of a performer for kids anyway. So yeah. It's very frantic, very interactive, blah, blah, like that. But I like it quiet, and I like it time to think and to contemplate and stuff like that. So I'm working through those things in my head when I go, I take a podcast with me thinking I'm going to listen to this podcast if I'm going to walk, but I don't do that because I'm thinking about the story.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And just running through the story and trying to map that out. So I can very easily walk for an hour and a half and do nothing but think about running scenes through my head. Yep. And that works best for me. But it is a case where a lot of times my wife tells me things and I don't remember what she told me. And I'm sure that's with everybody. But there are definitely times when I know the background reels are running all on their own. So I miss some things.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like if it's important, obviously I'm focused. But if it's just if I can phone it in and I've got writing on the brain, I'll be thinking about characters, or I'll be looking at a person walking in front of me and I'll say, that's a cool shirt, or that persona is kind of cool, or the way they walk's really unique. That'd be fun if I had this character do that. Or, like I'm always kind of picking fruit off the trees and just kind of saying, oh, that'd be cool to write about. Or that library looks really cool. What if a truck flew through the front of it in a fight scene? And I just kind of get all these little pieces that I later jot down or type in my phone real quick before I forget it. And I'm just kind of always, if I don't have to be present, I'm always kind of working in my head.
It's something that you said was kind of hit home. It's the what if.
Yeah.
What
always.
It's a constant what if.
Always.
And that's what drives everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my favorite part is like, how can I make this serene scene catastrophic, or this very serious scene funny, or this very funny scene suddenly unfunny? And so I'm always just trying to think of just ways to kind of, ruin the scene that exists, I guess, and just kind of make it comical or whatever, the opposite of what it is. But do you focus a lot on, so you're writing in a setting in the 80s, and obviously you lived through it, but do you have to go back and do a lot of research to try to do? I would assume you would, but that's just me.
So when I think of characters or people that stood out in my mind, so they might show up in a book or aspects of that person or whatever. And I wasn't completely joking about making bad decisions in the 80s, because I graduated in 1983.
Okay.
So, there were a lot of bad decisions that happened from birth till now, but even more back then. And a lot of those are funny stories, those things that you would share. And those things are quite vivid, but what band was popular when this was going on? What band at this party? Those are things that I don't remember specifically.
Yeah.
If I want to go back to, and it's funny how your memory is wrong.
Yes.
You might think, oh yeah, there's this river that we went rafting, and I want to put it in there. And wait a minute, that river that's not right. And so I go back and I check almost to the point where maybe sometimes it's too detailed. So I don't want to give a money conversion in September 1983, because somebody's going to stop and they're going to go back and want to look at that. Maybe I don't need to get that specific sometimes.
Yeah.
So I have to weigh that a little bit, but I have to go back and look things up.
I would think so.
Once I see it, I remember it. But
exactly. Then you're like, oh, I should have known that. If you run into any Mandela effects where you remember something differently than how it really happened, like a different brand name or a different movie title or anything like that?
I'm sure I have.
I'm just curious.
Nothing that stood out, but I'm sure I've gone in there and I didn't remember it that way.
Yes, it'd be kind of funny if you put one of the Mandela effects that's not true as true in your story. That'd be kind of funny. But yeah, so I always kind of run into that, because if you're around kids all the time at your job, or even just around the characters the same age as the ones you're writing about, they act totally different now than they did in the 80s, I would assume. Mannerisms, clothing, conversation, everything I would assume would be quite different.
Yeah, that really is try to go back and draw from all the people that you knew back in that period of time, and try to be as true to what you think it was. But that's the hardest one to do, because
I bet.
Without making a stereotype of a valley girl in California,
exactly,
which most people weren't.
Yeah.
In order to give it an authentic voice, it's tough. It's tough to do that.
Yeah, I really didn't notice or think of any of those things until I watched Stranger Things. And then you heard some of the phrases that they call each other. So like, knucklehead or whatever, they would say something else, and you're like, wait, they called each other that? And it's just kind of like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. And I would think that you'd run into that all the time. But yeah,
and some of those are still, I can still remember those, but there are things that I'll go back and I'll have to look at and say, well, how would somebody say something a certain way, or things like that. So I do go back and look a lot of times. And again, it really is a case where, I remember this distinctly from the 80s, but this was, like you said, it came out in 1989, not 1983.
Yep.
And so that hasn't happened yet. So I can't use that. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know that. That's kind of the point, is that I was born in 85. And so it's like half of it's already gone for me. I remember the Mario Brothers. That was later, Shayne. I think that was 85 is when that came out, I think, Super Mario Brothers. But I did want to mention one thing. I should have said this at the beginning, but if anyone has any questions, type them in the comments, because whether it's me or Ty or both, or about his series, about his books, about his character, or any just writing questions, if you're an author, just go ahead and put it in there, and we'll be scrolling through those and kind of picking some out at a random, or if Ty has some. But what other? I mean, this isn't the first series you've written. You've worked on other books, and those are still up, correct?
They are. Yeah. They're juvenile. They were juvenile fiction. Again, it was a story about a young man who's got a stutter. It's actually a magic language, talks to dragons. He's got a best friend who's autistic. He also has a female friend who's one of those girls that beats the boys at everything.
Yeah.
And it's how they get caught up in a battle between demons and dragons, and it's a 3-book arc. And I learned a lot. Book 1 was pretty good. Book 2 is better. Book 3 is even better. I really enjoyed writing them. It's funny, when I was promoting those, it was one of those things where I would go to farmers markets, and I would go to, oh my goodness, what else would I was just always face to face selling these books, and I thought it was great. I'd sell 20 or 30 books face to face, and most of my customers were not 10 or 12-year-old kids, but 45-year-old women who happened to love that more.
Yeah. Okay.
It was interesting.
Yeah,
they were my demographic.
Hey, that's same with Harry Potter.
Yeah,
it's very similar to that.
So they're still out there, because I actually let that publisher go some years ago. Great guy, wonderful person, but I thought I could do a little better on my own. So I redid covers, put them out there, and I've just kind of left them, and I haven't done anything to them. But I went off on some other tangents, and I did write. I'm actually sitting on 3 books from a different series, and we may touch bases on that at some point. And run that idea by you. It's based upon a real life serial killer back in Kansas in the late 1800s. It's a really freaky story, and my main character, his goal going from book to book will be getting in the middle of these ghost stories. So it's a little different than urban fantasy. It's more like a true ghost story.
Yeah.
And that's something that, maybe we can do something with later on. Hopefully people buy these books and they like them.
There you go.
Like me. And if I'll keep writing them, because it's totally fun.
Yeah.
But if I can do these other ones, that would be wonderful too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember that being a really interesting concept when you told me about it. Is like, oh, wow, that's based on a true story. That's really cool. It's in Kansas. I'm in Missouri, so it's close, where you're like, oh, wow, that's right down the way. What was with the kind of self-publishing angle you took, what was the hardest part about trying to do that? Going from a traditional publishing mindset to...
I didn't have to do anything when I had somebody else publishing for me. So all I had to do was do the writing, do the edits. I came up with a teacher's guide, some things like that, but I didn't have to do all those other things, the format it for CreateSpace at the time, and websites, and all of those things that a self-published person has to tackle. And I didn't enjoy them, and that's really why I didn't do them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there.
It's not fun for me. You have a marketing background.
Yeah,
and I have a business degree, and I did that, but it's not the same thing.
It's not.
It's not a marketing thing. So for me, that part of it just wasn't fun.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And the formatting thing, when I first started, I had $0 to invest in any kind of software, so I had to learn how to code. I had to learn how to type HTML and all that stuff for the ebooks and make sure the spacing was right. It was a nightmare. Yeah. I was up, 20 hours a day trying to figure some of that stuff out outside of the writing. So yeah, I agree there. But then applying the marketing is what really kind of changed it for me. And that's the goal with Argento, is to try to help roll that into other authors and help them kind of pick up.
No, I am so happy to have somebody willing to take that on.
Well, I just make Lane do it all. So
I know. I know Lane. Thank you, Lane.
Yeah, no, Lane works his ass off. So, but yeah, so let me see if there's any questions here if I make sure people are still posting questions, if they've started yet. And then there's one other question I had. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I was going to ask you this. What's your favorite part of working with an editor? What's the favorite kind of feedback you prefer?
Well, I mean, it's super handy because my attention to detail is just god awful,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just a fact. And I'm an English teacher, and I really have to force myself to focus to catch the little things, because I'll read a sentence that I know is wrong, and I have to really to pay attention. So for me, it's great to have that. But more importantly are the content ideas. I need somebody who's telling me that this scene doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That where you've taken the character, that's not their true voice. They wouldn't
Yep.
say that.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't make sense in this plot device that you used.
Yeah.
Those are invaluable.
Yes.
People will overlook a couple of misspelled words. I think they'll forgive you that. I don't know how forgiving they are when you've got a glaring hole that doesn't make sense, or you had something in your head that you thought you had done properly and you didn't.
Yeah, that's the same kind of approach I take. I know some people really hate that. They don't want to get that kind of feedback because I don't know if it hurts their confidence or self-esteem, or when they're told that they did something wrong. But to me, that's the most valuable part. I mean, the grammar and stuff, I know I'm going to butcher, but the really kind of the commentary, really, also the critiques, but just the commentary. Like, did I make you feel something? Why was it impactful? Was this funny or too much? Like, just kind of you get that from advanced reader teams too, but that's my favorite part about the editing process. Is it's your first kind of foray into someone else seeing it outside of you, and when they're reading it for content, not just critique or not just grammatical, that's kind of my exciting moment. If you can kind of just look over their shoulder while they're doing all their stuff. And
I agree. And in addition to that, just, you mentioned very positive feedback, which it makes you feel good. Obviously, everybody wants positive feedback. It's been difficult for me because I've done a lot of writing in a vacuum for a very long time.
yes,
And I have family read it, and I value their opinion, but it's still family. It's like those people that go on American Idol that get up there and they're shocked because they can't sing.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you have an audience that appreciates what you're doing.
That's a good point.
So it's good to get some validation.
Yeah. Do you ever attend any kind of readers or authors clubs, or any of those kind of events that they have locally?
Early on, when I first left the Air Force active duty, I belonged to a group, and I was working on a project, and I went for a little while, but I was really arrogant, and I really thought that these people didn't know what they were talking about. And they were spot on, but I was like, hey, I'm only here just to make sure you guys know that I know that it's good. And I did that for a while, and then few years back, I joined a group, and it was more like a therapy session. It was terrible. These books, my life is really good. If I'm a successful author, that's great. But I have a good life. I'm happy. I have a lot of things that make me happy. These poor people.
I know exactly what you mean.
And it was group therapy, and I'm not here for group therapy. I'm here to make better characters. So I had a couple experiences with that, and but no. And part of the problem, quite honestly, is I love to read, but I don't like critiquing other people's work.
Oh man, tell me about it.
I grade papers for a living.
Oh, that's
true. I don't want to look at somebody else's paper, so it's selfish, and I know that, and that's one of the reasons I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, I kind of the same experience. I tried it a couple times, and I'm also arrogant, whether right or wrong. I'm still arrogant, and I hate dealing with feelings when I just want answers. And so like I went to a couple that were also, basically AA meetings, Authors Anonymous. And you're like, oh my God, I just want to know what you think of this book.
Yeah. I don't need the rest.
Yeah. So that's funny. So we've got Carla. Lane's kind of throwing up some questions here. So if you guys have questions for Ty about writing, about his characters, about anything, he's got his first
about the gnomes in the garden.
Yep.
I love my gnomes in this story. My gnomes make me happy. They are the little mafia. Every trailer park is like a family. I had so much fun writing the gnomes because they're just so nasty and just fun. I don't have gnomes in my garden.
It's because you know better.
That's true.
Yeah.
But, I had a grandmother who had one of those yard, porcelain objects, frogs and whatnot all through the yard and things like that. Same neighborhood where you would have people with toilet seats and things like that for planners, high quality folks. But yeah, so I think that's where it came from, some of those things in a yard. But I don't have gnomes in my yard. But I live on a hill. I can't have anything in my yard. Anything I put in my yard is going to roll down the hill.
There you go. So perfect for sledding.
Right.
Well, maybe not. Maybe straight into
the lake. I live next to a lake.
Oh,
so you go down the hill, hit the street, into the lake.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be so good then.
Yeah.
So we've got Patricia Moran. Approximately how many books is the Gen Knight book series going to be?
So I think in basically 3-book arcs. That seems to work for me pretty well. I had the first arc, knew what I wanted to do more or less. I'm working on the second arc right now. I'm actually writing the climax to book 4. And I know where I want to go with this next 3-book series. The beauty of it is I can think ahead of some possibilities, and the 80s have at least 5 more years. So I think I have a lot of material there. I think I can write Jen's story for quite a while.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Until I run out of 80s. And then you know what? Hey, we've got the 90s.
There you go. There you go. Rebrand. All right. So do you ever get character ideas from your teaching job, or do you try to steer clear of that? I think legally you have to say that you steer clear of it.
I do. Of course, you see kids that I wanted to write something years ago. I thought it was a great idea. I had some really brilliant kids that came up with their own dictionary for their own lingo. Like they were making up their own language. That's cool. And they had illustrations of what weird words meant and stuff like that. The kids gave me the book, and I thought, wow, one of these days I want to write a kid story about some kids that just use this language and wrap it into a mystery and stuff like that. So if I have kid characters, for sure. I have amalgams of personalities that I've worked with, that I've seen, over the years. So yeah, kids do influence what I do, I think.
I bet. I mean, it would almost have to.
Yeah.
If you're around them all day. So we've got Julie Pederick. Hi, Ty. Will this go into audiobooks?
Yes. We have a wonderful reader.
Yes. And
she has done the first one, and I think she's making progress on the second. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I love, that was the coolest thing when I was working with her. And she's asked me, well, what do you envision for this character? And I don't hear accents in my head. So it was a really hard question for me.
Yeah.
Certain characters, that they're gonna have a verbal tick, or they're gonna talk really fast, or something like that. But a way a voice sounds and stuff, that's not something that I ever thought about. So I really had to think about that and give her some answers. And sometimes she took it upon her own to develop an interesting voice or accent, and it's wonderful. It's fantastic.
That was the hardest part for me, is when I first got into audiobooks. You're like, hey, what kind of accent? And I was like, I don't know. I never thought of that. Because I never listened to audiobooks. It never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So that was a weird one for me too. It was almost stressful. All the different questions they had, like what kind of dialect, is it low or high, and what kind of accent? And it was just like, I have no idea. I can hear it in my head, but I never thought about that. So that was a weird one for me. Nikki Selhane, I cannot say that. Nikki Blair. I know, I recognize it, but I can't say it right. What are the books that help you escape? So I guess in your reading life.
I do enjoy young adult books. I do enjoy fantasy books. Fantasy books are probably the ones that I'll use to escape. But some of them are so profound, and some of them have the conflict in them, or so it's like those stories that twist you on the inside and then let you loose and then twist you on the inside. And those ones I really enjoy, but they're not my ones to escape. I like the feel good ones. I like the story arc, the hero's journey type books where the person goes off and discovers who they are and they come back in this better person than they were. So those are the ones that make me feel good. I like the feel good books to escape.
Yep. Same here. Do you, who's your favorite author? Or one of your favorites?
I love the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling, obviously. I like Stephen Lawhead. I like
what does he write? I haven't heard of him.
A lot of the like Robin Hood type books.
Oh, okay.
Those types of things, medieval stuff. Bernard, is it Corn? The person who came up with the character Uhtred, it's Bernard Cromwell, I think his name is. I love his stuff. Cromwell, I'll think of his name. Well, he writes these historical fiction kind of books that I really enjoy, and he's got a character that I've read these books from when the guy first started out till he's an old man, and it's set in medieval England, that sort of thing, and I really like those. I read so much, I sometimes don't even pay attention to the authors. I just grab the books and just read the books.
Yeah.
So,
but
Cornwall. Thank you, Linda. I just saw that.
Cornwall. There you go.
Cornwall. He's fantastic.
Okay.
That guy's fantastic.
So that's from a reading perspective. What about a writing perspective? Who kind of inspires you? Maybe their work ethic or their quality of writing or the way they write, or is there any kind of role models you have as an author, or is there maybe just a role model in general you have, some kind of inspiration? Fictional or not?
Again, I've met some wonderful authors, and I think it's the ones that are able to have a full-time regular job and do their kind of thing and just plug away at it until something works.
Mm-hmm.
There was a book written years ago. It's called Tangerine, and it was big in all the schools.
Uh-huh.
And it was a book that I got reluctant readers, boys that wouldn't read, to read because of this book. And I met the author, and he was just a real unassuming guy, taught high school, didn't have enough money to, he's like, I got to work for a living. I have one book, and it's very successful, but it was one book. And he's since gone on after he retired. He's written a couple of highly acclaimed books, and he's won some really prestigious awards and that sort of thing like that. So it's wonderful to see somebody like that who just put the time in, worked at it, did his thing, and he got some success afterwards. So it was really,
that's always good. So we don't know who this one is, but so are you more of a fan of happily ever afters or cliffhangers?
There are some hit cliffhangers in my stories. There are. And it's hard for me to write things that, people are hurt or people are, it's hard. It's painful to write those things. I like a happy ending. I'm one of those people. I like the rom-coms and stuff like that. I really do. I like it. Oh, look, they're so together.
Yeah.
It's funny, but I like the happily ever after, but I don't write those very much.
I was going to say, I haven't really gotten that from your books.
I don't really, I don't really write. I like them. They make me feel good, but I don't really write them. I
think you do really well at writing the drama between characters, especially in the first book. Of showing the just tension between characters. I thought you did an amazing job at showing some of that. So I thought that was really cool to see. So we've got Ty. This is from Michael Perry, and he says, Ty, have you tried David, is it Gemmell?
David Gemmell. I have not.
Not sure who that is. I haven't heard of him either. I guess he's an author, I would assume, but
I have a sticky note.
Yeah, and David Gemmell. And then someone said Lawhead also wrote some Arthurian romances. That's why it sounded familiar to me. Okay. Because when you said Uhtred, I was like, oh, wait, hold on. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I like the author, but that goes back to that story arc, the 12 steps of a hero that it follows that. So and those are fun for me. I grew up with those, I think.
Do you really kind of focus on that, like meticulously when you're writing?
No,
like a checklist almost.
No, and smart people do.
I don't either. That's why I'm asking. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are very successful writing that. If some of the I'm drawing blanks now because it's past my bedtime, but
a lot of movies do it too.
They do. Well, Star Wars is absolutely
perfect. Yeah,
a case study in that.
Yeah,
it absolutely is. And God, I'm trying to think of some other authors because so many of them do it, and so many of them do it well.
Yeah.
The Lightning Thief. Who was the writer?
Percy, or I can see it. Percy Jackson.
Yeah. Those books.
It's not James Rollins, is it?
No. It's
he wrote a different one. He did the Egyptian one.
I probably have it behind me, but anyway. But
it's right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I can't remember.
But he follows that very well and does a very good job with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes I think there's some tropes in there that I don't want to do the same kind of trope.
That's
Rick Riordan. Yeah. And I've met him twice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, which is funny that I couldn't come up with that. My family belonged to the St. Louis Library Society or whatever it was. And whenever they would get authors that would come through, oftentimes we get to meet them before they would do the book signings and stuff. Okay. So I got to meet them then. And I was also at a teacher convention. And I'm in a room, big convention center. And he's there at a little desk, just himself. I walked up to him like I'm talking to you and just have a conversation with him. And that was the coolest thing about those authors, that they're just very down to earth. You know, he was a school teacher, came up with these stories for his kid.
I think I've kind of noticed that a lot of these authors were teachers, or just they lived jobs where it wasn't a lot of customer interaction. They could be busy as all hell, but they would be, not necessarily business people, but they would be a doctor of some kind, or they'd be a teacher or some kind of scientist or a vet. And so they're really in their own head a lot of the times. And so I don't know if that's a warning sign that you're going to write a book someday, or if that's just coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it comes from anywhere, actually. Yeah. I know Michael Crichton was a physician, and he was super prolific. So it comes from anywhere, I guess.
Yeah, James Rollins comes to mind. He's a vet, I believe, or used to be, and he just writes some killer stuff. I think he's super talented at some of the things he writes. So yeah, that's cool. If you could meet any fantasy author at like a convention right now, who would it be? Who would you want to meet?
That's tough.
Mine's always changing. It changes from week to week depending on what comes out. But it doesn't have to be fantasy. It could be anybody. But mine, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have to think about that one. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
So James Rollins would be one of mine. I think Cassandra Clare. I'd be interested in talking to her.
I met her.
Did you?
Yeah, I met her twice.
And it's her and her daughter that write together, right? Am I thinking of the right person?
She's not. Well, it's been years since the last time I saw her. She was in Bethesda, Maryland, at a little writing thing. I also saw her in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Funny woman. She's very entertaining. Yeah, I got to meet her.
Yeah, it'd be her, Sarah Moss, and then J.K. Rowling, just to talk to her about her.
I'd like to meet her.
Upbringing.
I'd like to meet her. Yeah.
Like her drive is just, even as a non-author, like just her work ethic was just phenomenal to watch. To see that she went from where she went to billionaire, richest woman in England or whatever. It's just.
And
phenomenal.
I haven't read her adult series that she has, the Investigator series.
Yeah.
My wife has. and she really loves her. So I haven't read those ones, but I hear they're quite good.
I can't remember her pen name, her second pen name. I know it's something. It's not J.K. Rowling. She writes
No,
under a
it's
different
not.
name. Yeah,
It's not.
So we got John Corwin. Are you a plotter or a pantser on the when you're writing your books?
I'm more of a tactical thinker than a strategic thinker. So I vividly come up with scenes. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to know what end I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of start in more of a loose outline. And usually before I begin a book, I start mapping out a loose outline. And then I start filling in with, okay, well, I want this to happen. What if this happens and and that sort of thing. And then I make some 4 or 5 pages of detailed notes about characters and I put all this together. And then at some point I stop and I never look at it again.
Okay.
And then I just start writing.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's more or less what I've done.
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of both. Like you've got it in your head, and then that's interesting. And that's kind of the next question: do you plan out the whole book, or do you let the characters run? It's kind of a spin-off of the last question.
Yeah, it's a case where a lot of times how many books have I written now? 1, 2, 3, 4, like 7 or 8 books. And they're not all the same. So sometimes I know what I want to do and I know the sequence I want to do it. But more often than not, I know I have this interesting idea, I have this character, and they kind of take on a life of their own. And then oftentimes what I think is going to happen changes.
Yeah, I definitely know that one. I always tell myself, I got this one mapped out perfectly. The arcs are all there, everything's great, and then the character just runs wild, and those end up being the ones that the people like the most a lot of times, is when the character just kind of takes off, and I got to keep up with them. So yeah, I know what you mean. Every time I try to plot it too perfectly, I always derail somewhere. I stay close, but I derail. So we've got, let's see if there's any others here. If you could have a dinner party with 5 guests, alive or dead, who would you invite and why? Oh, this is to both of us. So 5 alive or dead people from any of history, I guess.
Well, I suppose Jesus should be invited, but I'd like to have an interpreter.
Yeah.
Probably Caesar would be a good one.
That's a really good one.
Maybe Attila the Hun.
Nice. So this is gonna be a real peaceful dinner.
Or Genghis Khan. Mary Shelley, maybe.
It's a good one.
That would be a good one.
Yeah. That's good. So is that 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3. That's close. I think it was 5. So we've got, okay, I would pick Alexander the Great, Achilles, Homer, and Ernest Hemingway, and Nikola Tesla, probably. I think that'd be fun.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Just to see what he really knew, what he really came up with. Oh yeah, so people are asking about the music. They can see all your guitars.
My guitars. So I got everything's on the low end. So this is an Epiphone Dot instead of the Gibson because I don't really warrant a Gibson. And I've got a Martin acoustic back there, and I have a Fender, and I got a Spanish. So I started picking up guitar at age 50. And because I play all these different styles, I'm really not good at any of them. But it makes me happy. And I'm not being self-deprecating here. I don't have any musical talent at all. But my little baby steps, my little accomplishments as I play makes me happy. So I have a wonderful old hippie teacher. I take lessons in a building that was built in 1835. I think that my teacher is almost that old. He's been teaching for 56 years. And he's this old long-haired guy. He's wonderful, wonderful. And I walk in there and say, I heard this song by Jefferson Airplane. Can you show me how to play it? And he'll break it down and give it to me in tab, and I can work on it for 2 or 3 years because that's how long it takes me to play.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, see, I have no musical talent. When I was a kid, I played trumpet, I think. And I did pretty good at that, but it's not very cool to be a trumpet player. So I never.
See, I wanted to play trumpet, Shayne. I really did. I did. Yeah. I was in kindergarten and first grade, and I came home. I wanted to play trumpet, and my parents said no. And they made me take guitar lessons when I was 10. I didn't like it. I never practiced, and then I picked it up again.
That's crazy.
Later.
That's crazy. Yeah,
I wish I would have stayed with it.
Yeah, I got an old dented hand-me-down, probably 50-year-old trumpet. Yeah, that's how I started.
It was cool in first grade, though.
Yeah,
it was. It was cool.
You're absolutely right. Back in middle school, and it was okay, depending. But all right, so I think we're closing up on time here. I'm just scrolling to see if there's any last questions. So we got some people that popped up late. Maybe they're working or something. So anyone who jumped in late, this is Ty Burson, brand new author with Argento Publishing. He's been working his ass off. And he's got 3 books that are coming out called A Shoplifter's Guide to Wizardry, if I can talk straight. That's the series name, and book 1 is Pour Some Magic on Me. I think we've got the pictures posted in the den. They're also in the background here, but they're all live for pre-order. Book 1's coming out September 9th. Book 2 is You Give Magic a Bad Name. That's September 16th. And then Sweet Child of Magic, book 3 is September 23rd. So we just wanted to introduce him here. You guys can replay this. But yeah, Ty came to Argento. He's been working on this for a while. And we wanted to wait till we had a bunch of them together so we could put them all back to back. So really excited to have him. I'm glad you joined the team. And we hope that everyone in here buys your books at least 3 times. That's
Absolutely.
the goal.
Yes.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Retirement, I'm telling you.
Each one. Because, we might change, chapter 1. It might have a different intro to the story. So you got to buy all 3. But yeah, so no, it was awesome seeing you here, man. And what kind of weather? You're on the East Coast right now, or is it too hot?
We're hot and miserable.
Is it?
We had the same weather you had.
Oh, okay.
Nice and cool, relatively so. But the heat has come back, so we're back to misery.
So the last couple of days, it's been great. And then starting tomorrow, I think it's like 95 again. Yeah. Humidity 110 or something stupid. So it's gonna be nice and damp outside.
Yeah, it is.
So, well, good stuff, man. Well, I had an awesome time talking to you. I can't wait for everyone to check out your stuff. You'll probably start seeing a bunch of the pre-order links. Lane already posted them in the Den of Freaks, but we'll be posting more of that, and we'll probably be picking some people from the chat. So here, if you're watching this late, I think we're going to wait till Sunday, but just post some comments in here in this video on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are. And we'll probably be doing giveaways for the launch of Ty's books. And once the launch actually starts when it goes live, we'll be doing a bunch of contests too. So definitely pre-order the books. They're really good. Our team's already been looking at them. They're loving it. Set in the 80s. Really cool main character, Jen Knight. I'm excited for everyone to read it. So Ty, it's been awesome. You can go have your dark beer and go relax, man.
All right, I will. I'm going to go get my beer and fall asleep on the couch.
There you go. Friday night.
Great.
Perfect ending to a Friday night, man. All right. Well, you have a great night. All right. And everyone, thanks for joining us. And we'll talk to you soon.